Back to the Better Health Now podcast. Today I sit down and talk with Dr. John Licata, a board-certified pediatrician here at Cullman Regional. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So but before we kind of dive into the topic of developing healthy eating habits, talk a little bit about your kind of journey to get here to Cullman.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, so not too far away. I am the son of a general pediatrician, so perhaps that's what kind of started me on the journey toward pediatrics. I went to the Medical College of Georgia for my medical training, and I completed my pediatric residency in Charlotte, North Carolina. My wife is actually a professor and a dietitian who sought a job at Stanford University, being her alma mater. And so that's what brought us to the Birmingham area. And I'm very excited for the opportunity once I saw that they were expanding the pediatric offerings here in Cullman.
Awesome. Well, it's perfect timing kind of for this conversation as you know you begin your time here at Cullman, but jumping into sort of developing healthy eating habits, it can easily be a wide net to talk about. So hopefully we're able to kind of dive into some specifics along the way. But helping children kind of develop these healthy eating habits is important, and especially as it's important to kind of navigate that and have that begin early on. Can you explain kind of how the toddler years are so important and kind of ways in which developing healthy eating habits can kind of look like on the parent's end?
Yeah. So I think I'd first like to preface the conversation with I am a trained general pediatrician. I am not a registered dietitian. However, I think the training and education that we get in nutrition, and also just given our experience and anecdotes in the clinic, we use growth and development as sort of our bridge to talk about nutrition. And so when it comes to the toddler years, I think there are two main areas that make it a really critical time for us to focus on their nutrition. One being the developmental stage of a toddler is ripe for learning new things, for trying new things, and for really developing not only their preferences with friends, but also their preferences with foods. The second thing, again, going back to growth and development, is the nutritional needs of the toddler. They are not little adults. And we say that all the time in pediatrics. Children are not little adults. It's quite fascinating that toddlers actually require more energy and more nutrients per bite than adults do with the foods that they eat. Of course, toddlerhood being about age 1 to age 3 is a critical time of linear growth. So they're obviously getting taller and they're gaining weight as well. But brain development is critical during this time too. And so how nutrition fits into that growth and development piece, I think, is where the pediatrician is at a critical place to make a difference.
Yeah. And I mean, it's that 1 to 3 it's critical, like you mentioned, but it's also it can be probably pretty tough for parents to navigate it when you have picky toddlers that maybe don't like certain things and you're just wanting them to eat something and not cry. How do you kind of go about navigating or suggesting or encouraging parents to, though the toddler might not have the feedback that they want it to have, that, providing them with healthy eating habits early on is crucial. And in what ways do you kind of like encourage or help them navigate that and say, hey, like, even though it's not maybe the greatest feedback you want to see, that it's going to be beneficial for them in the long run?
Yeah. I think there are two conversations that we have. The one is where we can get it started early. So we see the child at 12 months of age and at 15 months and at 18 months of age. Studies have actually shown that children under the age of 24 months are the most receptive to new foods. So if we can offer all the food groups, if we can offer a variety of fruits and vegetables, if we can introduce them to fish and to other lean meats that are different than the chicken nuggets and the French fries that maybe we're used to seeing, we can then, I guess, influence or help to develop their eating habits before they become the picky toddler of the 2s and 3s. Now, the other end of that conversation is that picky 3-year-old. Yeah. What are we to do with that child? A couple of the practices that we use is to empower the parent. So this is a critical time for them to kind of learn the child a little bit and to teach them boundaries and to understand that it's the parent's role to put the healthy foods on the plate and to serve it at an appropriate time. Studies also show that family mealtime is critical not only for concentration and for communication, but really for these healthy eating habits. However, the parent then loses control, and it's up to the child to decide what to eat on the plate, kind of when to eat it, and then how much to eat. And so one thing that comes up a lot in my clinic is I see that parents perhaps have higher expectations for their toddlers than the toddler does for themselves in terms of the foods they are eating and how much they should eat. All that to say, while a toddler's growth is rapid, they actually require far fewer calories than we think they do to maintain appropriate growth. And so we hope that that's reassuring for the parent, where they can take a step back and say, it's really just the toddler portion I need them to eat.
Yeah.
And of course, portion control is an important part of the conversation too. But involving the child in meal preparation, eating and sitting down with the child and modeling good behavior and healthy choices, and then also pairing preferred flavors with maybe unfamiliar foods. And so I thought my mom came up with a great idea when she put cheese on broccoli. It wasn't necessarily a novel idea, but the textbook shows, the science shows that toddlers are built to crave sweet and salty. However, bitter is not a big part of their taste profile. And so vegetables by nature are bitter. However, if you put cheese on broccoli, the salty grated cheese can cover up that taste. So those are a couple of things to combat picky eating.
And I would assume too, I can definitely think throughout my life and like growing up, and you'd see maybe families that cook a separate meal for their kids because they know their kids won't eat what they're cooking. And I think how do you kind of like how important is it not only for the healthy that the benefits of having that toddler kind of go through and try a lot of different things, not only for just to not become a picky eater, but to also kind of the health benefits and all the growth that they're having at that time in their life.
Yeah. One of the things that my wife has taught me best as a registered dietitian is to try to get out of this mindset of kid foods. Yes, they have preferences, but sometimes the adults can sort of cater to that too much. And so while children do like cheese pizza and one of their favorite foods is mac and cheese, you can still provide additional sides that are of a healthier profile, or cook different things into those foods that allow it to be part of the family meal. And so I think one of the other critical pieces of research is that by the age of 4, food preferences, while aren't set in stone, there is a typical pattern of those who have started out as picky eaters will remain picky eaters. Those who have been more open and broadened to a variety of foods will likely carry those preferences forward. And it's just as early as age 4. And so not allowing the child to set aside their meal, also not having them snack too often, outside of the confines of family meal and family snack time, again, to be able to model that good behavior can be really important in the toddler years.
Yeah, and it's always interesting too, as like you develop these as you start liking and finding foods that you enjoy more at a younger age, and then you get to a certain point in your life where maybe the foods that you used to like or used to not like are foods that you now like or now dislike. Is that something that happens at do you see that happening early on in a child's development, or you see that happening as they are maturing, that those taste buds sort of change?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think research is starting to show that while some tastes and preferences are innate, like I described the salty taste versus the bitter taste, food preferences in general can very much be learned. And so I think I try to encourage my parents that it can really take up to 10 or 20 tries of a new food or an unfamiliar food or maybe an old food that they didn't like and they might learn to like, for not only the taste buds to develop, but for the whole eating experience with the smell of the food, the spices on the food, the preparation of the food, for the child to really decide whether they like it or not. So it's definitely a period for the parent where you should not give up.
Yeah, and how it's definitely probably easier said than done sometimes from the parent's
Very
perspective
much so.
of it's just you want them to eat something.
Yeah.
You get to a certain point, it's just like, I don't even care if you eat it or not. Like, I will get you something that you're able to enjoy, and that you'll maybe stop crying, or
Yep.
just enjoy the dinner, make it more enjoyable for everyone else.
Yeah.
Is there sort of beyond just trying it continuously and kind of having that persistence with some of the foods, is there any sort of recommendations or best tricks, or as for you, having cheese on broccoli, it helped. Like,
Right.
is there things that if it's a food that they know that the child might actually like, or they need to kind of at least eat it because of the benefits of it,
Right.
that you would recommend them do to kind of allow that child to say, hey, this is something that I enjoy, and that I can see why other people would enjoy it too.
Right. So a couple of the things that come to mind are, one, toddlers are master imitators. So they often learn language after hearing it said by an adult. They often model their physical skills, whether that be climbing or running, after older siblings. The same can be true for food choices too. So oftentimes, I guess a tip or trick would be for the parent to have the food on their plate. And to act like it's their food, and perhaps with a family meal, they are eating the same types of food, but not to force it onto the toddler's plate. However, the toddler will then take it off of the parent's plate. And so if you can model that enjoyment, if you can show that you like this food, that it tastes really good, you have to really kind of get into character sometimes. But the toddler taking it off of your plate can be a way to sort of trick them into eating it. I guess another thing would be, one, preparing the food differently. I don't know how many times I've heard in my clinic, and my wife has reported from some of her sessions too with her clients, that a child doesn't like peas. But if you get deeper into it, they just don't like the canned peas that are steamed on the stove. There are hundreds of different ways to prepare peas, to pair it with carrots, to do different things with it that, yes, they're peas, but they look different, they taste different, to try to get the child out of the mindset of, I don't like vegetables.
Yeah.
Well, that's a broad category that means a lot of different things and has a lot of different colors and flavors. And so those would be the first couple of things that come to mind.
I mean, I think thinking about peas and growing up, it's like we would always have birds' nests. It's the mashed potatoes and peas. So it creates sort of a different reason to enjoy it than just by itself. Because I mean, there's tons of vegetables, even at 25, that I like or I don't like by themselves. But if you pair it with a certain meal or a certain meat or a certain other vegetable or side item, it becomes a substantially better and more enjoyable experience. And I think separating that, creating a different meal for the kids versus what the parents are eating, that disconnect makes it seem like in the kids' eyes that no matter what mom or dad are eating, I can get my dino nuggies and fries.
That's right.
And so when you kind of bridge that gap, says, hey, what we eat, and that's what it was like for growing up. It was like whatever we're eating as a family, and I'm not making a separate meal for you. Obviously, there's probably tons of resources out there for parents interested or listening to this or watching this that they can read up on and kind of educate themselves. Is there sort of a best practices or things that you would recommend, or books or websites that kind of direct parents into learning more about this topic?
Yeah. I think that's a really important piece of the puzzle when you talk about resources, because we only have brief moments in the clinic, right? Whether you are a pediatrician or a dietitian. And so allowing the parent to be empowered to find reputable information, but also use those tools at home. So when it comes to the pediatric resource, I always recommend healthychildren.org.
Okay.
So that's sponsored by the AAP, or the American Academy of Pediatrics, and it is supported and edited by pediatricians to provide up-to-date information and toddler nutrition, because it is such a difficult topic when it comes to picky eating. There are lots of resources on that website. More from the dietetic side, I recommend myplate.gov. So this website is sponsored by the USDA, or the Department of Agriculture, and it is compiled by really researchers, scientists, the government officials who are putting out the national guidelines and recommendations for nutrition. And so that has a great resource for not only what the toddler's plate should look like, but also the parent's plate as well. And then finally, I think, as I stated at the beginning, it's important to find registered dietitians and resources from them who are, again, highly trained in this topic to provide best practices and best recommendations. And so don't be fooled by the title of nutritionist. It's important for parents to know that nutritionists do not have to be certified or licensed or registered, as registered dietitians suggest. It doesn't mean that someone who is a nutritionist is not a dietitian, but you just want to be careful with where that information is coming from. And so one of the resources that I recommend to my patients is a registered dietitian on social media whose website is called Kids Eat in Color. And if there is sort of one message to send to parents and children in the toddler years, it can be fun, it can be exciting, it can be colorful and creative to eat the healthy foods and to develop these healthy eating habits. And so that's one of the best resources that I found.
Awesome. And yeah, we'll have all those links and all those things in the episode notes. So if people want to find out more information,
Great.
they can definitely visit that. As you're about to, start your time here at Cullman Regional, as this episode is releasing, your offices are opening.
Yeah.
What do you see the rest of 2024 looking like for you here at Cullman Regional, as well as kind of progressing into 2025 and in the future?
Yeah. So I'm really excited for the pediatric clinic here at Cullman Regional, as we are adding not just one, but a second pediatrician as well. So a total team of 3, along with the one nurse practitioner who's already here. The hope is that we can just serve that many more children because we have more providers and physicians to take care of them. So I think as I start my practice here and we round out 2024, I'm excited to get to know the families of Cullman. It's, of course, a different town than Tuscaloosa, where I have been practicing for the last year, and perhaps different from Birmingham or Atlanta, the bigger cities where I come from. So I'm excited to get to know the families and to find out how I can help support their growth and development of their children, whether that means in the mental health realm, which is one of my other specialties, or definitely along the lines of nutrition, as I do take a lot of my advice from my wife. So that's what I'm looking forward to for the end of 2024. And then as we move into 2025, I'm just really excited to not only see the clinic grow and to see my own practice grow, but to be able to sort of, again, get to see the children grow. I'm excited to start taking care of maybe newborn babies who are born here out of the expanded OBGYN resources that we have, and then watch them as they go from infants to toddlers, and hopefully have a lot of these same conversations.
Yeah, and I think having this conversation that we've had today, I think is the great first step in that direction. I think educating is probably the first step that you do too when you're talking with a new family, is the education element. And I think conversations like this that need to be had. So I appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation with me about healthy eating habits. I learned a lot.
Awesome.
I hope everyone else learned a lot too, but I appreciate it and look forward to your continued growth here and success here at Cullman Regional.
Thanks a lot. I'm excited to start.